always in demand in good
All
times
right,
and in
welcome
bad.
to another
Just
video.
can't
This
have
is
skills
Attican,
about who you get
and
involved
first of all, I
with.
want to
In
say
any
that
case,
this
it's
video is
certainly
in
worthwhile to be
celebration
well.
of hitting
The year is
1,000
1940. Germany
subscribers.
needs huge
So
amounts of steel.
thank
We
you
don't
so
know
much for
exactly
all the
what they need
support.
it
It's been
for, but
great.
we are in a position to deliver that
And
steel. In return, we can
I thought
import
I'd do something
foodstuffs.
totally
For example,
different
good
as a way
beer,
of
which is
celebrating.
in
A lot
extremely
of,
short
well,
supply
not a
here.
lot, but several of you have asked me about transport.
According to rumor, a German
Is that
U-boat
right?
sank a
Transport
Swedish
fever?
schooner with a valuable
Yeah,
cargo.
transport fever.
5,000. The lady from the harbor said she could
Do I
help us.
play it?
Recently, a
Have I
message
ever
in a
considered
bottle
doing
washed up on
videos
the
on it?
pier.
And
She
yeah,
gave
I
us the
have
note,
played it.
written in a
Great
script. It
game,
must be
great
somewhere
game.
around here. We'll send out a boat to
And
locate
I
the
thought
spot
maybe
and
just
salvage this
as a
valuable
little
stuff.
celebration
Found
of
it. How
hitting
lucky
1,000,
can
we
you
would
get?
do a quick
We found
video
the sham,
on
sham,
Transport
sham
Fever. You could get an idea of
booze
kind of
ship.
how I play the game and some of my thoughts about it. And then you could let me know if you'd be interested in seeing any more videos about Transport Fever. So we're doing this the Europe campaign, the third one, called Hard Times. And this one is all about food and distributing food to 3 cities. And it could be, I could see where it would be very challenging. The way you'll see how we're going to do it. It's so easy, it's almost scary. But I could see where it could get you, because you have to be able to create steel. That takes coal and iron ore. You have to ship that steel down to a port. The port then exchanges the iron for food. And then you have to distribute that food basically evenly between 3 cities that are spread across the map. So the logistics of all that, if you don't take the right approach, could be quite challenging. But I'm going to show you what we're going to do here to make this super easy. We're going to use trucks, not trains. I know we all love trains, and I do too, but we're going to use trucks for this because the trucks give you a granularity of control that you don't have with the trains. The trains are so expensive that you can't just up and buy another train. But boy, if you're a little short on the trucks, you just buy some more. That's one thing. But the biggest thing is the specialty box cars on the trains. Each train has to be set up with the right box cars for the right load. But the trucks that we're going to use, you'll see in a minute, will carry anything that we have. They'll carry stone, construction material, steel, slag, food. It doesn't matter. So if I want to run a line that has steel going to a port and then food coming back, that truck can do that. So very versatile. That's one thing. Second one is you'll see how super simple this is to set up, and honestly, it almost becomes boring. But what we're going to do here is set up a central hub. And the hub is going to be around this building. It's actually a warehouse. It hasn't been constructed yet. And in Transport Fever, you can always tell if something's coming up in one of your missions when you got these mystery buildings that don't seem to have a purpose. So we're going to, and also that's right in the center of the map, so it's perfect. We're going to build a hub right there, and everything's going to flow in and out of there. So that first line I set up was coal, which is going to the hub. And you'll notice that the coal is not going to the steel mill, and we'll get to that in a minute. Now, the second thing that the steel mill needs is iron ore. Here's the iron ore mine, and we're going to set up a line now to take iron ore to the steel mill. And we'll give it a road, a straight road, kind of across the mountain here, so that it doesn't have to go in a big loop or go down and clog up traffic down there in that city just above us there. And there's 3 cities. I totally can't say them. I mean, come on, we don't have these names in West Virginia. So I'm going to. Malmo, I've heard of that, Malmo, or however you say it. I've seen that in other games, actually. The other 2, I have no clue how to say them. So I call them Got and Job off the first 3 letters, because I usually abbreviate the city names with first 3. So I've got Mal, Got, and Job. So Job is up there above us. And then over to our left, as we're looking at it right here, is Got. I think it's probably Gutenberg or something like that. And then down below us is Malmo. So this first line we're setting up is the iron ore. So we need 2 stations one on each end, and we have to get them inside the catchment area of the item we're trying to service. So in this case, we had to get it so that when we click on the road, the steel mill lights up, and down there on the other end, when we connected to the road, we wanted to make sure that the iron ore mine lit up. That meant it was within the catchment area. And I'm not going to go through all the basics of Transport Fever. I'm just going to assume you know how to play. This is not an attempt to introduce you to the game. It's just to give you an idea of how I play the game. So if you've never played the game, I'm sure you'll get the idea as you watch it. It's not complicated. There's a lot of nuances I probably won't be able to cover in one video, certainly. But that's kind of the point. Would you like me to? Would you like me to do other videos on this game? So now we're going to set up a line that goes from the steel mill to our hub. And this is where you'll see one of the things to understand about how goods flow in this game. We have coal coming up to our hub. It's coming up to there. We're going to put in now another depot or station here in our hub, and that's going to be the second end of our line from the steel mill. So the steel mill is going to come to the hub and then go back to the steel mill. Coal, of course, goes from the coal mine up to the hub and back. So what will happen is the coal will get carried up here to the hub, and because those two stations we're looking at right now are close to one another, within each other's catchment area, when the coal is delivered, if somebody needs it in one of those in the catchment area, they'll take it. So for example, it'll come into the yellow line, will bring the coal in, and then it will automatically dump it in that station where the green line is, because the coal needs to go back to the steel mill. So now our steel mill line is going to bring steel and slag, which are the two products of the steel mill, to the hub, excuse me. But then on the return trip, it's going to take coal back, which is what we need in order to generate the steel in the first place. So that's how the coal ends up getting in its ultimate place, and we can get paid in both directions for the steel mill to the hub line. Now the coal only gets paid one way, the ore only gets paid one way, but a lot of them will get paid two ways. Now what the one we're setting up is for that port up to our hub. So this line for the port up to the hub, its job will be to go up to the hub, grab steel, take it down to the port, then pick up any available food that has been produced at the port and take it up to the port. Or excuse me, I'm so sorry. Grab the food at the port, take it up to the hub. That's what's going to happen. And then you can guess, up at the hub we will have distribution. We will have stations set up that go out to each of our 3 cities. And by having it all come into a central place and then go out from there to our 3 cities, and by watching the how many trucks we have going to each city and how long it takes, and I'll show you the stats on that, how you kind of do that. But basically looking at the rate that each line services the city, if we keep them even, we're going to get an even distribution of the food into the 3 cities. And the game automatically sets up when these goods are produced at any place like the port or a mill or whatever, they're automatically set up to be targeted to the consumer that needs them. So we're going to be creating food down here with this line, but it's going to automatically be earmarked for the appropriate city. That's the other way we're going to keep everything even. Now, the other trick with Transport Fever is that catchment area. You want to take advantage of that. Scoot your whatever your station is as far away from that as you can and still be in the catchment area to make the trip as short as possible. That way you need less and less vehicles to get the job done. Just makes sense. So down there at that port, we sneaked that port station up as far as we could, up toward the hub, because we know that's where it's going to be going. And you kind of build all these, of course, in pairs. You have, your origin and your destination, and then ideally what you really like is to have a sweetheart line where you're carrying goods in both directions. So like this one we're setting up now between the port and the hub, we'll carry, as I said, steel down to the port and food back up to the hub. So it'll get paid twice. And kind of a weird thing in Transport Fever is you get paid anytime you take a good and move it somewhere else. So we can move the goods from the port up to the hub, and we'll get a payment for moving it that far, even though it's not really consumed by anybody yet. It won't be consumed by anyone until we actually take it to the cities, but we'll also get paid for doing that. So you really want, one of the tricks to Transport Fever to make your economy strong is to have these lines that are getting paid in both ways. That's why those of you who play the game, I know you probably, the first thing you look at, particularly if you're doing trains, you look for the crude oil and a refinery and move that crude oil to the refinery and then ship it back from the refinery back to where it started so that that train gets paid in both directions. That's because in the case of that, in case of trains and crude oil, you have the same kind of box car. That oil car is the same in both directions. That's why it works. Now, here, because we're going to be using these Mercedes-Benz trucks that carry everything we need. Anytime we have the ability to ship things in two directions, we'll get paid in two directions. So now we're setting up a line that's going to go from the hub to this construction materials plant down here at the bottom of our screen. So we're, again, scooting that station up as far as we can get it. And we're going to set up a line that goes from the construction material for the port to I got to stop doing that. The hub, from the hub to the construction material. And that way, the slag that comes off as a byproduct of the steel production, we can take the slag, move it down to the construction material plant, and then move the construction materials back up because a certain amount of them are going to be needed for that building up there, that warehouse that hasn't been constructed yet. That's one thing. And we also just want the construction materials. But you'll see in this one too, to make sure that we can really have a strong economy, we're also going to have a big, long, profitable line to help us create construction materials. You'll see that in a minute. And then we're going to spread those construction materials out to the cities, which, by the way, will help the cities grow, which will mean they need more food, which you could think of as, ooh, isn't that hurting us because we're trying to supply food? But you'll see we've got it all covered. And we want the cities to grow so we can just even supply them with more and more food. Yeah, you'll see how that goes in a minute. But anyway, here we are setting up the line that goes from the hub to construction materials. That's slag down and construction materials back up. And I do apologize. This was running in Windows, and some of my the rest of my screen, it's not pure game. The rest of my screen's down there. I thought about trying to edit it out, but it really doesn't matter. The only thing on it that's kind of telling is the fact that I'm playing this game awfully late at night. That's about the only thing you can glean from looking at all that stuff. But anyway, so now we're setting up our line for distribution of the food down to the cities. So what we do is in Transport Fever, you have three zones: residential's green, the blue's commercial, the yellow is industrial. And the blue is where you need food. That's because it goes to shops that are in the commercial zone, and that's where people go buy their food. So what we're doing actually is just using a bus stop as our delivery point, and we're going to instruct our trucks that are delivering food to the cities to drop them off at that bus stop, and it works perfectly well as a way as your distribution point. So we're going to set up lines that go from the hub, where all the food comes back to, out to each city, and it's going to go to that bus stop in the commercial zone, and that way we'll be able to get the food out there to the area in the city that's needed, and drop it off simply, and just make sure the route drops off and comes on back. So we're going to be setting up lines. I'm trying to see which one this is. Okay, yes, this is the hub to what I call Gutenberg or whatever it is. So the hub to GOT is, as you can see, it goes from the station up here in the hub down to that bus stop and back. And then our next line is going to go to Job or Job or Yob or whatever it is. And we're going to run, we used a large station there so we could run a couple of lines out of it safely. And we're going to set up the line going down there to Job, and it's going to pick up food at the hub and take it down there and drop it off. Then we'll set up a third line that goes all the way back down to Malmo. Now, we're creating the food for Malmo right there next to it, but we don't want to just run it over quickly because we don't want to get it out of sync, because one of the things we have to do is, if we end up at any point where one city has 30% or better satisfaction of food and one of the other cities hits 0, we failed. So we're going to make sure it stays even by running everything to the hub and then running it back out. So the Malmo food, and honestly, the way the Transport Fever pays you, it's actually better anyway, because we get paid to move the food up to the hub, and then we're going to get paid again to move the food back down here. So here we are setting up in our blue section, our commercial section in Malmo. We're setting up the bus stop, and we're going to set up our line to drop off food into that city. And now we've got all 3 cities with lines for food. And if you notice, we haven't even started the game yet. We're setting up everything before we've even started the game. And another advantage to using the trucks is they're so much cheaper than trying to set up the trains, that we're literally going to have at least 90% of our work done here by the time I quit gabbing and we actually hit the start button, and we'll just run this thing on fast forward. You know me, it's got to be fast forward, and we will just rip through this thing, and basically we'll sit and watch it. Not to give you too big a spoiler, but we're basically going to watch. And I could have been, tried to spread these depots out where we're going to buy our vehicles and put them all over the place, but I just put them in one place because it doesn't really matter. For a while, they're just going to run around. Now, I'm going to buy a bunch of vehicles. I'm going to do them in sets of 20. You know me, I like a lot of vehicles. So we're going to run 20 of these Mercedes-Benz trucks on each of our routes. And I actually, to keep track of it, the easiest way for me to assign them out was just to go down from top to bottom. So I'm just I'm buying 20 and putting it on each line. And then after we get started, we'll adjust them a little bit if we need to, even up the frequencies on some of the lines if they come out a little bit uneven. But 20 is a great way to start. And you notice we still haven't started. We're just spending money and getting everything going. And of course, if we wanted to be a really good player, and here's a kind of my laziness again, my infamous laziness. For me, it's easier to just do it all now, have it all ready, and have it take off and let them fly. And you also notice all the lines, I didn't set up any of the lines to run on full. They're all going to just go, and if there's something to grab, they're going to grab it, and if they can't find anything, they're going to move on. And the reason being, I didn't want to try to micromanage all these little connections, and it's going to get very busy in that hub, you can imagine. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 depots. I think, no, they're not called depots. I guess they're called stations, but 7 places where we load and unload our goods up there. And there's going to be a lot of traffic there. It's going to be busy. So we don't want the trucks to go in there and happen to get in a situation where they're waiting on a full load and they're actually causing a traffic jam. So it'd be better to have some of the trucks run empty occasionally than to have traffic jams. So boom, here we go. You can see all these vehicles just flying everywhere, and off they go. And I didn't care about if they went to the proper station first or second. It didn't matter to me. Just let them go. Let them fly. Let them go wherever they feel like. Let them start running their routes, and off we'll go. Now, while that's happening, we're actually starting the game now, so to speak. But while that's happening, I'm going to build a long road up here that goes all the way up to that stone quarry way up there ahead of us. And that stone quarry is actually going to run all the way back down to the construction material factory, because a construction material can be built out of the slag from the steel, or it can be built from the stone. So we're going to have it go both ways, because I wanted to make sure that we got as much of the construction material delivered as well as the food, to make sure that we got our money, because the goal here, of course, is to win the mission, but also to hit all 5 of the gold medals they give you. And one of them is to have, they call it, well, I forget exactly, amassing wealth, basically hitting $50 million in wealth. So to make sure we hit that, wanted to make sure we're dealing in construction materials as well as food. And also because it's there, why not grab it? And if there was another industry, I would have grabbed it too. But all we have to deal with really in this mission's construction materials and food. That's all we and steel. Of course, we can create steel, but it just has a purpose of creating, of making food for us. So now I'm setting up a big long line. This is going to be a great line. Going to make a ton of money. A long line where the trucks will be full. Well, we'll have the potential to be full in both directions, and after it gets going, they will be. They'll be full in both directions, and we'll be grabbing stone up here at the quarry, taking it down to construction materials, grabbing construction materials there, taking them back up. So I'm treating this up, going to treat this up here as like a second hub. It's going to be a construction materials hub. So that first hub is more the food hub. This one this one we're looking at right now is going to be the construction materials hub, and construction materials will be created there. We'll come back to there and then get distributed out. In fact, I'm even going to go so far, in order to keep them all even and everything, as to run construction materials all the way up to that quarry and then drive them all the way back down to Malmo. So may seem silly, but you get paid for it.
Money
you make
is
a
slipping
ton of
through our
money, big
fingers.
long line,
We'll soon be
and it also
bankrupt.
allows that line
But
between
if
the
we're
stone
prepared to
quarry and
grovel
the
on our
construction
hands and
materials
knees,
to be
our financiers will
loaded
grant
both
us a
directions.
bridge
So,
loan.
but of course it would anyway, because we've got Gotten Job up there. We've got to feed with construction materials as well. But now I'm sending off trucks to that line, that big long line, and I think I ran 40 trucks on that one because it's so long. And now getting ready to set up the distribution for our little second hub here. We're going to run line from here over to Got and to Job, but now we'll look at the industrial section, because the industrial section is what demands the construction materials. So we'll turn on our little graph here to show our colors to show us where it is, and there's the construction materials. So we put a bus station in that, and we'll come over here and do the same thing, put a station in where we can drop off construction materials, and then we'll go down to Malmo and do the same thing, give it one. And you can see, and this is another example, I'm going to run those construction materials all the way up to that second hub and then run them all the way back to Malmo, rather than just taking them, the 2 miles it is from the construction materials plant into the city. It sounds crazy, but it works beautifully. It's profitable, and it's the way to go. And it's similar to, with the whole train deal with the oil and the crude oil and the refined oil, and how you would move it these big long distances in order to maximize the train and then distribute it from there. That's what we're doing here. So here's that line over to Got, and then we'll set up a line over to Job, and then we'll set up a line to Mao, and we'll be good to go. And we'll have everything up and running. And you'll notice right now, of course, we literally just started everything running, but we haven't delivered any food yet. So, oh gosh, is this working? Yeah, it is. Don't worry, it's working. It's working great. Just give it some time. It takes a while for it all to get started. And here I wanted to make sure that I'm putting a waypoint after the delivery so that the trucks will come down, drop off, and then go back out on this outside of the city so that so we don't have a big traffic jam, and they're not trying to go back the same way the Food Line Line is going back. Sorry, we have a grocery chain called Food Lion, Lion. It just struck me that it's hard to tell which one I was saying. Line, Food Line. Okay. So now you can see, dozens of trucks running willy-nilly all over the place, but they've got a purpose. They all have a specific goal in mind, and they're off and running. And this is our lines to distribute the construction materials. So we'll get all that set up, and then it'll just take off. And we'll just sit back and kind of watch it. So there, I think I've told you everything I can think of about the setup. Centralized hub. Well, that's about it. And then distribute everything from that centralized hub back to the city so that you have even distribution. Second hub for construction materials, distribute everything out of there so that, again, you can have even distribution and maximize that big long stone to construction materials line. Use the bus stations as your drop-off points within the city. Here you can see the big traffic jam as all those trucks have all arrived down there kind of at the same time. And so the bad news about doing it the way I'm doing it is, of course, I fire off so many trucks right off the bat that you get these traffic jams for a while. But eventually it clears out, and that may look like a traffic jam. It isn't. That's
a confusing
beautiful.
tangle
That's
of
just
dubious
money
alliances
flying
and conflicts which spontaneously ignite here and there.
You can
Things are getting
see the green
uncomfortable in
little
Europe.
money
We
popping
should
up
make sure that we are
as
not too economically
trucks are
dependent
dropping
on that
off in there.
unstable
So
mob.
the
and
money's
have
starting to
something
rack
eat,
up for
even
us.
in times of crisis. The country must be prepared and store sufficient
we're
reserves of
starting to see
foodstuffs.
results.
We have been commissioned to help build an appropriate warehouse.
So we've already brought construction materials back to that warehouse to get it built, and we are starting to look a little better. Now this little window I'm looking at right here is where you see it's the line manager. It's the most really it's the number one thing you use in this game, and it shows you all the vehicles you have assigned to all of your lines, how much money they're making. It just shows you everything. And here we've already hit one of our gold medals, which is just the basic food supply. So we've given all the cities food now. So we've got a medal, and we've
Good
hit
gracious.
one of our achievements.
We're spending
And
money
in
like
this
there's
one,
no tomorrow.
There's no
Just this once, our financial
requirement or
backers
no
are willing
medal
to turn
for
a blind eye
not
and help us out
borrowing.
once
So,
again. But
debt is your
is
friend.
definitely the
as
last
I
time.
would say in other games, and so I really am fine with bumping that up and taking the extra money because it's just money for you to use. And it doesn't cost you the medals in this particular one. There are different missions where you are supposed to try to stay in your budget so you never take a loan, and that's part of your achievements, but this is not one of those. So we've fed all the cities, and now we've got to build our warehouse. And then once we do that, we have to stockpile food into that warehouse in preparation for the upcoming war.
Tensions are increasing. War seems inevitable. It would be best for our country to remain neutral so that we don't ruin anyone's business. However, our food security is in poor shape. We must expect the importation of foodstuffs to become difficult. We had better be prepared. But the populace also shouldn't have to tighten their belts.
So I think you can see, if you plan this out and you have all your objectives in mind with the strategy that you deploy at the beginning, the actual play of the game, in particular this particular scenario especially, I mean, we did a lot of work at the beginning to set up all these routes and to get all these trucks out there running. But once they start running, other than watching the line manager to make sure that our frequencies are lined up between the various routes so that they're staying pretty even in their production and we're getting what we can get out of this, there's really not a lot to do. And I literally watched this play as more than I played it, so to speak, and as far as actively doing something, because this is an example of where if your plan is really solid and the layout of what you do is solid and kind of a good design, pat myself on the back, then you're done. You got it, and this one actually is one of my favorite missions in this particular game because it's all about strategy. If you get the strategy right, you got it. It's not about how fast can I click a mouse or can I build a pretty line or whatever. This one's about figuring out a strategy that really works and understanding how the goods flow in the game so that you can take advantage of them, make a lot of money, and also keep your distribution correct as you go. So at this point, we're already up to about 60% with good even distribution across our 3 cities at this point, and we're beginning to stockpile the food for preparation for the war. And what makes this so easy, of course, is having that hub right around that warehouse. So everything's naturally already routed there. So when that new requirement came along to build the warehouse, we didn't have to change anything. We already had it set up to do that. When the requirement comes along to stockpile food, we didn't have to do anything because that's where it gets stockpiled, and we're already bringing food back there. So would I have been this smart if I hadn't already played this one? Yes, I'd like to think I would, because of the central location of this spot and because that warehouse is going to be, that building that hadn't been built, that's going to be something special in the game. Actually, the Seattle mission, the last one in the Americas campaign, has a similar kind of a thing with the space race. And you can take a very similar tactic there that works great on that particular one. But anyway, if you got the right strategy, it makes it seem almost too easy, because I don't think this one is that easy a mission, but it certainly seems that way right now, doesn't it? So what should we do? I think I am going to hit the fast forward here and move ahead some, because right now I'm as a player, I'm just watching the game right now because I know I've got it. I know I've got it nailed. I know I've got it doing the right things. I know I'm heading in the right direction. I know I'm stockpiling food. You can see the stockpile's already up. It's approaching 200. our percentages of food satisfaction continue to grow up. Continue to grow, and in fact, our percentage of satisfaction of construction materials, you don't see it on here, but it's going up too. So, things are going very nicely. So let's fast forward until the next thing, kind of significant event occurs. Okay, so we just got our second medal. This one was for stockpiling. We had to stockpile goods in preparation for the war, and you get a medal if you're able to stockpile 500 food stuff before the war begins. And as you'll see, we're going to blow that number away, but we got our medal for passing the 500 mark. And I'm going to go back on fast forward again until we come up with something else that's significant, because if you're watching, I'm literally just watching the game.
It's terrible. They're beating each other's brains out on the continent. It's better for us to stay out of it. Too bad all that warfare isn't limited to the continent. It's also happening in the North Sea. Submarines, sea mines, and cruising warships are preventing the importation of the few foodstuffs that are available to import. Nevertheless, we must ensure the supply of our countrymen.
Okay, so the war has started, and now our task is to just keep our citizens supplied with food for 60 consecutive months. And if anything happens to drop a city down low in their food supplies, we would get our counter restarted, which of course we don't want. But I can tell you we're not going to have any problem, because we have the food satisfaction up in the 60 and 70%, and it will grow up to be closer to 90 to 100% in each of the three cities. So we're looking really good at this point as far as that goes. So again, now it's in another kind of hurry up and wait mode while we just ride out these 60 months. And the other thing is, we have this stockpile of food that is going to slowly dwindle. And even though we got over 1,000 stockpiled before the war started, we will eventually run out. So I'm going to let it fast forward to the point where we do run out of the stockpile, and which triggers another little event in this scenario. All right, so we just got another medal. This one is for hitting that 50 million mark. So we've got 3 of our 5, and the other 2 are about fair distribution and about making sure that no city goes below 5%. And we're not having any troubles there. We're up in the 80s and 90s and percent satisfaction. So we're rock solid at this point. So let's go back to fast forward until something else happens.
Maintain the supply. He has begun butchering all of the available pigs. Unfortunately, he has a holy terror of a son named Emil, who keeps getting in his way.
All right, so we're up, we've been through about 40-some months of the war so far, and we finally depleted our stockpile. So that triggers an event where this farm opens up, and we're able to ship food from that farm. So we're going to just set up a simple little line that runs from the farm over here to our hub. And then that way the food that it brings in can either go into our warehouse or go out and be distributed to our 3 cities, as the case may be, as need dictates. So again, this is just simply setting up a little road to give us a nice direct line, and could just use the existing roads, but wanted to build a road just for this to keep the traffic as much as possible off these other lines, which already are quite busy with trucks. We're probably running, I don't know for sure, but probably, I'm going to guess 300 trucks at this point. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, easily 300 trucks. That's a lot of trucks. So we're going to run this line over and then set up one. Was hoping that it would be able to just run it off this little side road here and not hit that main drag that's going from construction materials to stone, but it won't quite, the catchment area is not quite big enough. So I had to hook it onto the main line, no big deal. Of course, the way I throw all those trucks out there at once, it is going to cause a little traffic jam for momentarily while those trucks spread out and get into their rhythm. But other than that, no big deal. And so we'll just set up a line that runs from the farm over here to our hub. It'll automatically, the goods will automatically, the food will automatically go to the appropriate other station for distribution, and we're good to go. All we have to do is put some trucks on it, and that takes care of our next little event here, where we have a farm contributing to our food. And I think you probably notice I do like to name my lines in this game, because that makes it so much easier when I want to, if I notice that a line's frequency or rate is a little off compared to the others, or if I notice, for example, you may have noticed when I saw a whole lot of food down there at the port that wasn't being carried, I added some some trucks to the port to hub line, so that we could keep up with all that big supply of food that was down there. So now we've got a bunch of trucks, and you can see the little traffic line there. We've got a little pile up as all those, they all arrive at once. And the unfortunate part is the pile up is partially the farm line and partially my stone to construction material line. And it's a shame to have it held up, but it won't actually hurt anything, because once they break free, they can go up and just get in line at the next spot. So a little snarl here, but then this will all clear out after one pass, after all these trucks get in here one time and grab some food and head up to the hub. Then that'll clear up and all is well. So we've gotten through another point of this. We're hitting, as you see, we've hit 100% of food in one of our cities, and we're in the 90s everywhere else. We're looking really good. We're making very, very good money. So of course we blew through that $50 million mark easily. And so again, we're looking good. So let's speed it back up again until something else interesting happens. All right, we're getting real close to the end here. We're on month 55. At 60, the mission will end. And spoiler alert, we'll get our last 2 medals because we've been so rock solid with this. And I just wanted to kind of wrap it up here and say that, first of all, if you like this, hit the like button, for goodness gracious sake. And also, if you would like to see more Transport Fever, put a comment in there and let me know. And if enough of you like it, then sure enough, we can do some more. No problem. And this is just one example of how I play the game. But I think I wanted to show you this one as an example, because to me, it's about, to me, it's a strategy game. It's a figure the game out and do something smart from the beginning, so that you're on top of the mission or the scenario all the way. And this is to me a great example of that, because you might find it boring because we almost didn't play.
We survived it unharmed, thanks only to our logistical skills.
We almost, you almost took the whole game off. I just kind of watched it. But at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helps you if you're a Transport Fever player. And I hope you join us next time we do a video. And one more time, I want to say thank you so much for helping me hit 1,000 subscribers on the channel. That's a big deal, and I'm very appreciative of all your support. Thank you.